Senator Jeff Bingaman, thanks for being here.
Sure.
Longtime Democratic House Leader Nancy Pelosi recently announced that she's giving up her position heading into 2023, her leadership position, that is. She's still representing California, but of course, you were in separate chambers, but what legacy does she leave behind as she takes this step back?
Well, I think she leaves a great legacy behind. She was a remarkable figure in the House, has been, still is, but I particularly admired the work she did on the Affordable Care Act. That's where we had a difficult situation there where the Senate had passed a bill, but we had then lost Senator Kennedy. He had died and had been replaced by a Republican. So the bill that we had passed had to be passed by the House of Representatives. We couldn't go back and forth again because we didn't have the votes in the Senate to do it again. And she took it on herself to pass that bill through the House of Representatives and then to pass another bill that amended it in significant ways. But it was a real accomplishment on her part, and I think she got a lot of recognition at the time, and she deserved it.
For somebody who's not involved in congressional negotiations, what does it look like when you have a situation where Speaker Pelosi didn't have the votes in that scenario, and then she's trying to wrangle those? What does that process look like? How much work does that take?
Well, it's a tremendous amount of work, and she, particularly in the House of Representatives, I've never served in the House of Representatives, but you know, you got a lot of people, and everyone that goes to Congress is sort of a prima donna. They all think they ought to be calling all the shots, and it's her job to try to keep them corralled and say, look, we got to do this way, or else it's not going to happen at all. And as I say, she was remarkably successful in that role for a very long period of time.
Now, to that point, kind of with a little bit of a preface here, she did receive some criticism, obviously, from Republicans throughout her tenure, but from the progressive wing recently, too, in the Democratic Party, who tried to get her to relinquish her leadership role a little bit earlier than she did. Is there something that the progressives maybe didn't realize about her skill set in getting things like this passed?
Well, I think they'll find out in the new Congress that that it's not easy to keep everybody on board and to get things done in a very diverse caucus. The Democratic caucus in the House is very diverse. You've got some conservatives, you've got some progressives, you've got some moderates, and you know, trying to corral that group and keep them going in the right way. It's like herding cats, as people say. I think a lot of folks will watch how McCarthy does, trying to be Speaker in the new Congress beginning in January, and compare it to what Nancy Pelosi was able to do, and admire what she accomplished.
The leadership corps seems to be clearing the way for 52-year-old New York Representative Hakeem Jeffries to become the new minority leader, is how it's probably going to work out. Is there anything that he can do earlier in his tenure to maybe tamp down some of this polarization that we talked about in our previous interview?
Well, he can try, and I hope he can succeed. I hope he can develop some type of respectful relationship with Speaker McCarthy, if that's who gets elected as Speaker. I think having some kind of relationship between the Democratic and the Republican leader in the Senate is extremely important, and it's also extremely important in the House.
Great. Any advice for him coming onto this job?
Well, he's there on the job and is experienced and well thought of by his colleagues, so I'm sure he knows much more about what he ought to do than I do. I'm not close enough to it to be giving him advice.
Understood. Thank you so much, Senator.
Sure.